Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show, Week 3. Adam, welcome back for joining me for the betting show. Back to just the two of us, like the good old days.
I know, we've got rid of him at last. That's what we like to see.
Well, I think both of his trebles that he's put out, I don't think he's had a single tick.
He's got a third treble that I know about, and I think there's a very, very strong chance he's going to keep his consistency up.
Good. We've already had a game for Week 3 in the books. It was the Giants against the 49ers. I chose not to stay up for this one because of the last time I stayed up till 4 a.m. to watch my team, the Giants. We got blown out by the Cowboys. I thought it was going to be much the same against the 49ers. We kept in the game for 3 quarters, but it was still comfortable for the 49ers. I'm guessing you've caught up with the game.
I saw the highlights. I did not stay up to see what I assumed would be a fairly convincing win, and based on the highlights I saw, it looked like a fairly convincing win. So 49ers look very good, very solid, which isn't really that shocking. And the Giants offense, just the O-line seems to be struggling. Obviously Barkley out, there's no run game. It's a concern.
As a Giants fan, it seems like I'm repeating myself and the same old excuses. Injuries, Saquon's out, Andrew Thomas is out, Jalen Hyatt. It just seems like I'm saying the same thing every year. And I want to stop using that as an excuse for these losses. But yeah, the 49ers never really got out of second gear and won the game. So that's boding well for them going forward, that they've got those extra gears to play against those teams that they need it. But we move on to the important Sunday games, the ones we'll all be tuning into. So let's get those odds up and have a little look at what we've got.
Yeah, so the first game live on Sky for the UK viewers this week, obviously, is the LA Chargers at the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are 1-point favourites, which it is a bit of a coin flip game, I suppose. Both teams have struggled, so it's not really much of a shocker. The over-under is 54. And I think we're going to see an exciting game.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a bit of a shootout. Fantasy-wise, this is gold for both quarterbacks and wide receivers, really, isn't it? I'm not sold on Staley as a head coach. Said that quite a few times prior to the season. So I would personally, with how Kirk Cousins is playing as well, I'd be on the Vikings side of the draw for this one. Are you on the same fence, or?
Yeah, I am. I do think the Vikings are the slightly better side in this one. I think both offenses are going to be good. I think both defenses are going to be poor. This is what we've basically seen all the way through. The Chargers, if you look at the sort of rankings based on giving up touchdowns, then the Chargers are slightly worse than the Vikings. The Vikings are a little bit stronger against the pass than what the Chargers are, and they're pretty much the same against the run. So, yeah, I like the Vikings for this one, I have to say. I think the fact they're at home might help a little bit as well, so you've got the crowd on your side. I'd really like the over 54. I think that's something that could easily be done. It feels a bit of a cop-out because everyone's kind of going for the over, but it does feel like the type of game that it would be. And then if you look at the touchdown scorers, there's a few here that Justin Jefferson is an obvious one. There's a few here that I kind of like the look of myself, though, at slightly bigger prices. Really like Jordan Addison at 8-5. Also like TJ Hawkinson at 8-5. I think although Jefferson is the main guy and Cousins always tries to go to him first, these two guys are getting open and they're going to have to be open. So I think they're both definitely very good options. And then on the Chargers side, the only one that I really like the look of was Keenan Allen at 11-8. I've noticed actually in this game, because I looked at this earlier today when I wrote it out, and all the prices have come in. So everyone's backing all of these guys. Keenan Allen at 11-8, I think, is a good price. I personally am not mega keen on Mike Williams. I think he's one of them guys where he's very hit and miss, and I would rather be going for Addison or Hawkinson on the Vikings side than backing Mike Williams.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. I know it's not been released yet, but my must starts for wide receivers for fantasy this week, I had Jordan Addison on there. I give you a little shout out as well, as I know you've not seen it yet, but you had Jordan Addison as your potential offensive rookie of the year in the betting show for the props. And your reasons were Jefferson's going to be having the extra coverage, Addison's going to be a bit more open, and week on week, Addison's getting more snaps, more targets. So I'd expect in this game, which is going to be a bit of a shootout, Addison to be heavily involved in that one. Equally, I have seen Mike Williams as the a must start for this week. I wasn't sold on it. I've not got him in my top 5. But yeah, I'm in agreement. Addison for me is where the money's at for this one, and Hawkinson obviously with the same odds as well. I think outside of Jefferson, who is going to be heavily marked and covered out of this, they're the options you've got to go for. That's the safe money, I think.
Yeah, I feel it is. I mean, I get that people are going Mike Williams. I think the logic behind it is that obviously he's the sort of big-bodied wide receiver, and they need to sort of like, if it's a shootout, then they're going to have to get more people involved. But I don't see it myself. It's not one that I particularly like. And then, to be honest, when I look further down the markets here for the touchdown scores, there just isn't anyone else that I'm really that bothered about. There's been a few mentions of Quinton Johnson, but I just don't really feel like he started very well. I think he's struggled to not only get on the field, but when he's been on the field, he's kind of struggled as well. So I don't really see it, and there just isn't anything else as far as I can see further down.
Might have to go on Sky Bet for this one because I've just scrolled down and not seen it. But do you think there's any good odds on Cam Akers? Yeah. I mean, he's got a couple of days at practice, hasn't he, to get in that? And we saw when McCaffrey moved over to the 49ers, he played with a 2-day turnaround and scored a touchdown. So
it kind of makes sense, and you feel like they're probably going to try and get him out as soon as they possibly can and get him into the game. It feels that I don't know. You can run on this Chargers team, so that is something that is possible if they want to. But I think that if you end up in a shootout, the run game is the thing that's going to end up being sort of disappearing, and I think that's the issue with that one. So I don't really see him. I think he will be part of it, and he will do something there. I just don't think it's going to be that much like straight away.
I think a good opportunity to get him in a real short yardage red zone, get him in the end zone, get him comfortable with touchdown behind him. But I'd be interested to see the odds maybe tomorrow.
So Sky Bet have got him up at 2-1 anytime. So I mean, it's not massive odds. It's probably, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I can see why they'd want to get him involved, but I'm not that fast.
Should we move on to what I'm guessing is going to be the Bears' nightmare, having to watch this on telly? But who knows? There've been a bit of lots going on this week. Justin Fields in interviews, a bit cryptic of what he's blaming. Defensive coordinator resigning. Doesn't look good there at the minute. All seems to be going wrong against the reigning champions.
Yeah, so the Sunday evening game over here, the Bears against the Chiefs at the Chiefs as well. Kansas City are 12.5-point favourites. The over/under is set at 48. The Chiefs are 1-8 on the money line to win this game. I feel like that, I can't imagine anyone's going to be back in the Bears, and it just feels like it's a bit of a mess there at the moment with everything that's going on. The defensive coordinator's gone, hasn't he? He resigned. Fields, like you say, coming out with a few cryptic messages in his press conference, basically coming out and saying that now he's going to play sort of more.
How he
I don't
wants to
know, I
play.
suppose. Yeah, just sort of like how he feels is the way to do it, and not to think about things too much. So, but that kind of like that's having a go at the OC, isn't it? Who's still there? This is the thing. So it's a strange situation. It's a bit of a odd one. I think you're probably going to see him run a lot more because of it. So I think that is that he is 7-4 anytime. That to me is the bet in this one. Him at 7-4, I think, is the way forward. And my hatred of the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core and picking which one. And I don't know where you go, because you could go anywhere. Like you really could in this game. And I just don't like any of them because of that.
Yeah, I don't like any of them either. And for once, I don't like any of the running backs either. Pacheco's obviously carrying a hamstring injury. They're unsure. They're going to test him out tonight and see how much he practice day to day. McKinnon hasn't really been involved. Edwards-Helaire got a bit involved week 1 and then not at all in week 2. It's just so unpredictable. Bar Kelsey, who is going to be involved at some point. I wouldn't want to touch this game, and I wouldn't want to touch it for any time touchdown scorers, and I wouldn't want to touch it for the spread, to be fair. I mean, I'm looking at it and go, like, I've been getting you guys into college football a bit more, and they're the sorts of spreads that you get in college football, 12.5, not what you get in the NFL. You usually get covered the touchdown or the field goal, really, don't you? And the Chiefs aren't really, for me, I might be wrong, I might be giving you some false information, but I don't really remember them blowing teams out. They just win and win comfortably, but I don't think they overly massively blow teams out. And with everything that's going on at the Bears, I just think they might be up for it. And you might, like you said, what was it? Was it week 3 last year that Fields went, do you know what? I'm going to do what I want against the Patriots?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much around this time. I think they had a few games, didn't they? I think it may have been a little bit later than this. I'm not sure, but it wasn't far off at this time where he basically went, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and it sort of worked, and it showed what he can do. Yeah, I mean, 12.5 is big. It's a lot to be giving away, and that's what puts you off all the time, because like you say, it does feel a little bit like with Kansas City, they're not going to blow out any team because they just don't have to. So the plus 12.5 kind of, I suppose, if you do believe in Justin Fields, then that's the bet in a way. But like I say, I really feel him as a touchdown scorer is the way forward. I just had a quick look at receiving yards, because that is something that maybe you could go down if you wanted to. Rashee Rice is only 14.5 on the player receiving yards market at 10-11. That's quite low, and I feel that Rice has shown that he's capable of doing that. So yeah, I mean that's probably the one that might be kind of interesting and worth looking at, but there's not a lot here.
Yeah, I'm probably steering clear of that game, despite the fact that it should, on paper, be the one to bang some money on. But yeah, I'm steering clear of it this week, especially with everything that's going on, and the fact that Kansas City have not really got anything going on offense properly yet either.
Yeah, the only advice that I can really come up with this on, Fields anytime as a single if you want it, and if you've got a treble for the late games, because there are 3 late games, you can put Justin Fields in it. I think it might be worth doing that. If not, it's Kelsey, isn't it? And that's the one that you just put in just to add it up, just to boost the odds a little bit.
Well, we move on to the late game. Really interesting game. I really like. I mean, I say interesting game. It's probably not going to be one that everyone tunes in and watches, but I think it's a really interesting game because I think it's another coin flip of who the winner is. I think a lot of the fans are on Steelers' side and a lot of the betting people are on the Raiders' side. So, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a bit of an odd one. Like you say, it is a bit of a coin flip game. The Raiders are 2.5 point favourites, which is something that we haven't said for a very long time. The over under is at 43, so I think we're thinking quite a defensive game, which, to be honest, when the Steelers are around, is normally how these games go. I quite like the over actually for this, and the reason that I like this is that I think that the Steelers' defense hasn't been as good so far this year as what it is most of the time. It has let a few points go in these games, so I do think that they're going to give away some points to the Raiders. And also, the Raiders themselves have really struggled against the pass, and this isn't anything new. This is something that they've kind of always had a bit of a problem with, and a kind of mid tier when it comes to against the run. So I think you might see a few touchdowns. So I quite like the over in this one. I like the Steelers. I think that defense is just slightly stronger, and that'll be what gets them over the line. So plus 2.5 at even money, I like the look of. But really, because it's under the field goal, I think I'd be going 5-4 or just on the money line.
Yeah, seems a bit of a no-brainer if that's the one you want to go for. Heard some really interesting stat earlier today on my drive to work that we were talking about the Bears earlier, about how bad they've been and how disastrous they've been. They've had 3 red zone trips in 2 weeks. The Steelers have had less red zone trips than the Bears. So you say you like the over for the score, but signs would point towards the under on it. But I don't want to call it really because I've not seen enough from either of the teams in 2 weeks to say, yeah, I want to put some money on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. Obviously, the Steelers last week went up against the Browns, didn't they? Who have got a very good defense. I can't remember who did they play. Do you remember who they played in week 1?
The 49ers.
49, right? Okay, so they've gone against the 49ers and the Browns, which are two
really
very
tough
good defenses. And with all due respect to the Raiders, they're not quite at the same level.
Nowhere near.
So I do feel like that will maybe change a little bit. I also think that the Steelers showed that they could put up points against a good defense in the Browns as well. So I think that probably means that they will get a little bit more offense in this particular game. When it comes to the touchdown scorers, I like Jaylen Warren in this game. I think he's seeing a lot more in the passing game than what a lot of people thought he would. He's had six receptions in each game so far. I think at 15-8, he's a really good price, and I can see him doing a bit more because, to be honest, from what I've watched of the Steelers so far, and I might be wrong, but from what I have seen, their O-line hasn't really improved that much. So I don't see the G being able to do much against this Raiders sort of defensive line. But for Warren in the passing game, you just kind of feel like he's going to be able to move it around a bit more. So I do like him at 15-8. And then finally, for the Steelers side, the one guy that has kind of been very quiet in these 2 games, but the Raiders last year, the year before, in fact, all the time we've been doing this, have really struggled against the tight end. Pat Frymouth at 12-5, I think, is a good option for them.
Yeah, not really seen anything. Well, he's got a touchdown already, but yeah, he's not seen much of him. We thought he'd be a bit more of a breakout player. I know at the back end of last year when we were reviewing the tight ends, we said Frymouth might be that next generation of top tight end. So I think there's been a slight regression rather than a progression from Kenny Pickett this year. We all thought he'd make the next step, and that just really hasn't happened. I know Warren was your sleeper pick, wasn't he, for
Yeah.
for fantasy this week? So really interested in that one, especially when last year people were saying Warren reads the defense better and finds the gaps better. So there's a chance that he could beat out Harris, despite the fact that Harris came in with such massive potential and looked great in his first year. It does seem like it's Warren's starting to edge him a little bit more, and we could see a lot more of him if that's the case, because they do like. I think, well, it's key for them to use the run game, isn't it? Really, with Pickett not being fantastic. So, yeah, Warren getting involved a bit more. I really like that one.
Yeah, I think that eventually he's going to take over, to be brutally honest. I think he will. Just on the Raiders side, because there are a few players. I mean, we've said it pretty much all the time. It's the same story, really. It's Josh Jacobs and Devonta Adams. So it's the two guys at the top of the bet in there. Both of them are just over even. So I think they're worth looking at. That's about it, really. I mean, Jacoby Myers is there. You could argue. I think I'd want to see a few more weeks, because I think that he might be a little bit more likely to score than what he was in New England with Jimmy G. I think that is like more likely to happen, but I still, would want to wait a bit longer for him, I think.
Yeah, coming back off of injury, might be on a bit of a snap count. We don't know. Probably not the week to lump on. We'll move on to yet again, like we say, two Monday night games. So we move on to the first one, which is the not so impressive Philadelphia Eagles that we thought we were going to see going up against the overachieving Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What's your thoughts on it?
Bit of a surprise from both sides, really, that the Eagles have struggled mainly offensively. They've struggled, and also just the fact that the Bucs are they're looking relatively okay. I still think the Eagles will have too much for them in this game. I think they'll win. I quite like the -5. I could see them winning by 7 in this. So at 10-11, I think it's not a bad one. The Eagles have also shown that you can score on them a little bit easier this year than what it was last year. So I quite like the over as well at 46. I think that that's definitely one that could happen at 10-11. But yeah, for me, I just think the Eagles are going to be too strong against Tampa Bay, because as well as Baker has done so far, we've always seen that the biggest problem that he's had is that if any defense can get pressure on him, then he tends to fold. And I just can't help but feel that this Eagles defensive line will be what will be the thing that makes him kind of crumble a little bit. And so I think because of that, I think they'll end up winning it.
Yeah, that front seven's a bit of a powerhouse, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's going to be the issue. It's strange that Steichen leaving and going to the Colts is really, really shown how much he was the running that offense and getting it to click. So I think the Eagles just need a few weeks to work out what's wrong and what's not working, and then they'll be back to what they were last year. So this could be the week that they go, right, this is what we've done wrong, let's get back to basics, and it click. But we could see an upset if they don't get it going.
I mean, I think the Bucs have the potential to score on them. I just feel that the defense from the Eagles is just going to be too strong, and that's all that it is, really. It's almost like, although I think there will be points scored on the Eagles, I just think they'll put enough pressure on Baker in order to slow him down enough, and that's the thing with that. The one thing I would say on the Bucs side, if you want to look at it, the Eagles' defense over these first 2 games are currently ranked 32nd at giving up passing touchdowns. So that's the angle. That's where you can get at them.
The secondary.
The guy who you're going to go over the top a little bit and has the pace still is Mike Evans. So at 2-1, Mike Evans is not the worst bet at all this weekend. I think he's definitely one that's worth looking at. And then the two guys that I quite like the look of against the Eagles because the Buccaneers defense has been decent this year. For the Eagles side, I feel like AJ Brown is getting marked out a game. I think that's what we're starting to see. Devonta Smith at 74, I think, is a really good price. And so I really like the look of him. And then finally, Dallas Goedert, who, as we've always said, is the sort of safety net for Jalen Hurts. He's not been getting the yards, but the first week he basically had nothing. Second week he had 6 receptions. And you just feel like that probably means that eventually the yards will come when you're getting 6 receptions. So I think that he's going to be one who's got a decent chance of getting in the end zone as well at 21-10. So they're the two guys on the Eagles side. But I have to say, for the price, I think 2-1 for Mike Evans is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, before the season started, we were all steering clear of Evans and Godwin, weren't we? So now we're on the bandwagon of them fantasy. So if we're on the bandwagon with them for fantasy, why not put the money on and back it up with the odds on both of them? I think they've both got a great chance of getting in the end zone with those odds. So yeah, I'd be looking at those two especially.
Yeah, I think, like I say, Godwin as well has got a fairly good chance of getting in. I just think that it's going to be. I can't remember the Eagles. There was someone scored on them just going over the top. It seemed to work quite well for them. So I just feel like there's a good chance that's going to happen. So yeah, I think Evans is the one that I like slightly more.
Now the last game that we're going to go over before we get onto the important trebles. We've got no Sky ridiculous odds today. Everyone will be logging off. Is the Rams at the Bengals? I was a little bit more higher on the Rams before the season started than you were, and the Bengals, everyone's still saying, are the best 0-2 team, and not to worry just yet. Are you worried because you don't like the injury to Joe Burrow? Do you think he's struggling still heavily?
I don't think he's struggling. I think he's in serious trouble. I really like the Bengals as an organisation and a team, but I feel like they've thrown him out there a bit early, and I just don't think they should have done. And you hate to say it, but maybe they should have listened to Jamar Chase and what he said, and maybe let's hold off for a few weeks. And if you're 0-4 down, but he's been resting up and he's finally got his calf's not going to cause him a problem, it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, I mean, he based on what I've seen, he's not throwing the ball with the zip that he used to throw it with over the last couple of years, and that's purely because he can't put the pressure on the calf. It's pretty clear. They've added someone, haven't they? They've added a quarterback today. He was there training with them over the summer, and he's been added. And I think that normally when that happens, that's a sign that there's an injury he's not going to be able to play. So I feel that in this particular game, I think they're going to struggle because he's just not. If he's not out there, their backups they're not good enough.
Yeah, I was just rapidly trying to Google who did called up.
Yeah, there was someone. They came out and said that he was at the Bengals over the summer, had been training with them. So yeah, it feels like this isn't like just a niggling injury. This is something that's going to be a real problem for him. I don't really like any of them on the Bengals side. I don't like the Bengals for this game because of it. 6-5 for the Rams, I think, is a good price for a team that is showing that it can, put up points. He's doing well. Stafford is looking decent. He's got his new weapon in Puka. So yeah, I mean, I think think it's going to be difficult for the Bengals to do much if Joe Burrow is not out there. On the Rams side, I like Kyron Williams for obvious reasons. He's, the main running back there now that Cam Akers has gone. So even money, I
The
think,
only
is
running
good.
back there.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't use anyone else. I think Ronnie Rivers had a couple of carries, but wasn't like Kyron Williams in 92% of the snaps or something.
Pretty much, yeah. So I mean, I think he's gonna do very well. And then of the other ones, Nakua hasn't really shown he's more of a reception guy in the slot rather than a touchdown scorer. But Tutu Atwell at 12-5, I think that's the price and that's the guy to be on, because really Van Jefferson just doesn't look good enough, to be brutally honest. And so although I think they're saying he's the he's the shorter price, which they're probably saying that because he's the guy most likely to be downfield. But no, I think Atwell's the one to go for in this 12-5. I think is a nice price for him.
Yeah, Atwell's the speedster, isn't he? He's finally showing what we saw in him at college and thought we would get from year one from him. Everyone said he's a bust. They're all out on him, and he's finally shown up. It's really great to see the fact that we can look at this game and go, Williams, Nakua, Atwell all got chances because lots of people were out and thought they were going to really, really struggle. I know one of the podcasts that I listened to, really, really famous in the States, said that they thought if the Rams started off badly and didn't have any wins at the start, that they'd start trading off all their players. And it turns out that they're now viable and they could be fighting it out for a wild card spot by the end of the year. So, it could be really interesting. Love the odds on all the people you said. They're the people I'd be on. Atwell especially, he'd be the one.
Yeah, the other thing I would say about the Rams, and I've always been a bit of a having a go at the Rams. I don't like the way that they did it, where they basically just bought their way to the Super Bowl. But this Rams team is a different Rams team to what that is, and has kind of become enjoyable to watch because of it. It's kind of like a lot of youngsters who are kind of just try. It's funny. It's like you've got Stafford to sort of like the veteran quarterback with a load of youngsters around him, and they're just trying to make their way through it, and somehow it's working. And so it's kind of an enjoyable one to watch in a way. But yeah, so I think they're probably getting a bit more support now than what they are used to.
Isn't it odd that we all said that they bought their way to a Super Bowl, they'd given away all the picks that they've got, and they had nothing to. They were like, "How are they going to rebuild? They can't get the youngsters in." And now, like 1 year out, we're saying, "Oh, well, look how good all the youngsters are.
Yeah.
Look how good all these rookies are and second years." And even on the defense has got a lot of new youngsters on it as well, and it's performing to a level more than what we expected. They must have some serious scouts, and McVay must really, really be that top coach that we really thought he was, because he sorted an O-line out in an off season and got these youngsters clicking straight off the bat. So that guy's just insane, really, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, he needs to be able to beat Shanahan at some point, but yeah, apart from that, he's doing pretty well.
I mean, there's Giants, Bills, Steelers have never been able to sort their O-line out, and
yeah,
there's McVay sorted it out in an off season. So props to him. Should we move on to the trebles, Adam?
Yes.
Who
do you want first?
Do you want to start with Skies? Because I've not seen Skies at all. Do you want to
hit
me with that one, and then I'll go?
So as you know, obviously Sky's not here because he's gone off to America to go and watch his beloved New England Patriots get destroyed by the New York Jets at the weekend. So Sky's treble: Lamar Jackson, Mike Williams, which is shocking considering Jordan Addison's there, but Mike Williams, and Roschon Johnson. are the three that he's
The
gone
odds are
for.
going to be massive on this, right?
19-1.
Okay.
Do you wanna go for yours?
Yeah, well, I said last week I was fed up with everything that I put into the accumulators, coming out at 13-1. And I'm disappointed that Sky's managed to bang out a 19-1 because I've also managed to pull out a 19-1. But let me tell you the names I've got on mine. Maybe you'll be a bit more confident on it. I've got Jordan Addison. I've got Ramondre Stevenson and Nico Collins for mine. Just over 19-1. So £5, you're getting over £100 back on that. And two of those receivers are on my must starts this week for fantasy. So I put my money where my mouth is.
So Nico Collins is going up against the Jags, aren't they?
Yeah, and the Jags have been woeful in the secondary and give up plenty of points. And CJ Stroud is throwing 40 plus passes per game. I think he's had over 90 passes in 2 weeks, which is third most in the league. So, they're going to go to Nico Collins.
So my treble, I actually thought mine was going to be quite high, but apparently not, because you've both gone 19-1. Mine is 17-1, which is quite high for me.
Yeah.
So I have gone for Javonte Williams for Denver. I think that the Dolphins struggle against the run. They really have done. So I think Javonte Williams is a good choice this week. I have also gone for Jordan Addison, which last time we both picked one, it failed miserably. But I've also gone for Jordan Addison in the game against Chargers, which we're all expecting to be a high-scoring game. And then finally, I've gone for Zay Flowers, my two rookie wide receivers in this one, up against the Colts. They're tied 25th against the passing game so far this season. So I think that you're probably going to find that they may struggle a little bit. And I feel like it's very much become Mark Andrews and Zay Flowers now at Baltimore. I feel like Beckham's sort of disappeared a little bit. Bateman's not around. So, yeah, I've gone for them three, and hopefully we'll get a winner.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a great chance with that. The odds are really, really good, especially when NFL Network are touting Addison and Zay Flowers to be their must starts as well. So there's a lot of hype around these guys. I'm really shocked at the odds that you can get on them with how well Addison and Flowers have performed through 2 weeks. It's odd that even when I'm doing the fantasy stuff, the players I'm saying are must starts are all rookies. A lot of them are rookies. It's rookie wide receivers fit into the NFL 2 weeks into the season. It's great for the sport and the quarterbacks.
Well, it's good for certain parts. It's not good for veteran wide receivers because it means they'll be out on their ear. That's the only problem for them. But yeah, I mean, for everyone else, it's great. Yeah, it is surprising. Actually, I think there was a lot of talk, wasn't there, about the wide receivers coming out. The draft just gone, and it felt like Jackson Smith and Jigba was the guy, and the rest of them were kind of a little bit like, well, they might do okay, but it depends where they land and all that sort of thing. The one thing we all came out and said, they all landed in perfect places. And I think you're starting to see that that's what's happened. So that's probably why you're seeing they're having such an impact this year.
Yeah, it's really good to see. It's great for fantasy. It's really interesting. Hopefully one of these trebles comes in this week. I think we've got a great shot. I think mine and yours, Adam, got good shots. Maybe not.
Not Skies?
I'm unsure of Roschon Johnson. I think Roschon Johnson is going to become, we said this, he's going to become the main back in Chicago. But week 3, is he going to become the main back? I'm not so sure. So we'll see on that one. But if he does, props to him. I'll tip my cap when he's on. Well, he might not be joining us next week because he's still gallivanting in the States. But till then, Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.